It's good news and bad news in the latest city crime numbers. Municipal officials look to recover some social service contributions. And another deadly train derailment claims 80 lives.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Statistics Canada has released its 2012 crime numbers, and there's both good news and bad news for our city.
The rankings on the Crime Severity Index show Thunder Bay posted the largest improvement of any city across the country. But we have also, unfortunately, regained the dubious title of Murder Capital of Canada. Jonathan Wilson has more.
It's a distinction no community wants, but Thunder Bay had the most homicides per capita last year among the 33 Canadian cities with 100,000 people or more. The 7 murders represented 5.8 per capita, far ahead of Winnipeg, which had 4.1 per capita and 33 homicides. Regina, Halifax, and Edmonton were next on the list, while Toronto had the most murders with 80, but just 1.4 per capita. Deputy Police Chief Andy Hay says most of Thunder Bay's homicides involve alcohol and people who are well known to each other.
We don't have a lot of homicides. We had 7 last year. Currently we have 2. I don't know where this year is going to end up. It's too early to tell. But we are quite a bit different than a lot of major centers. I believe Toronto last year had 80 homicides. We are not Toronto. We have a very small population. One homicide has a great impact on our homicide rate with only having 115,000 people.
Despite the troubling murder numbers, Stats Canada shows Thunder Bay has had a dramatic decrease in overall crime. In 2011, the city ranked 3rd worst in Canada with a 107 score on the Crime Severity Index, but that number has plummeted 17% to 88.0, the biggest decrease in Canada last year. That put us in 7th spot across the country, behind Regina, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Kelowna, Vancouver, and Brantford. Hay says it's been a concerted effort.
There's a lot that goes into dropping those rates. First off, you have to have good, effective crime prevention as well as enforcement and investigative strategies in place. We also attribute it to more of a consciousness within our community right now on crime prevention and crime issues, social issues.
Hay says the newly formed Crime Prevention Council is helping turn the tide, and he hopes the crime numbers will continue to decline with other initiatives such as the new Zone Watch program and the zone policing model, which is now being implemented.
And I think we're going to continue to see a turnaround. We're going to monitor the situation very close. We're not going to sit back and say we've turned things around or things are looking better, that we can relax. We're going to turn up the pressure on this, and hopefully we can get our crime severity index down and hopefully more towards the national average of about 75. Currently we're at about 88.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Some municipal politicians who sit on the Thunder Bay District Social Services Board had a difficult decision to make today. The DSAB's final 2012 budget comes in with a surplus in excess of $1 million, money some communities would like back. Dennis Ward has more on the deciding vote.
$1 million split on a per capita basis can be big money for some municipalities. The 2012 DSAB surplus, if fully returned, would mean nearly $800,000 for the city of Thunder Bay. For smaller communities, those dollars can be even more precious. The member from Greenstone says his colleagues directed him to vote to get as much money back as possible. But he and others decided to hang on to almost half of the surplus dollars for possible upgrades to the buildings it looks after. DSAB CAO Bill Bradica says he understands municipalities wanting the money back.
Unfortunately, what we're faced with is reduced funding in many areas from the province, which does contribute, I guess 2/3 of the total DSAB budget. With social housing, though, the difference is that the province considers it a 100% municipal program.
Bradica says future costs to fix up social housing in the district could come with a price tag of $10 million or more. Economy Mayor Kevin Holland was the only vote against hanging on to the money. He represents a lot of smaller communities on the board and says they too are facing budgetary pressures.
A lot of the member municipalities are facing a decrease or increase in their budget due to OMPF shortfalls and outside agency budget increases, and a lot of them are struggling. The decision will be livable. Obviously, I voted against it, wanting to get the full amount back, but we'll move forward from here.
The DSAB will get a report on the necessary upgrades needed in the fall. Bradicka says if the price tag is smaller than believed, the additional $400,000 could be returned to the municipalities. Holland says that would make the people he represents very happy. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
A little more than 5 years ago, Prime Minister Stephen Harper made a historic apology to former students of Indian residential schools. Today, people across the country, including here in Thunder Bay, were demanding the government honor that apology. About 30 people, including some who attended the schools, gathered in a circle at Vickers Park this afternoon. Survivors who wished to share their stories did so, bringing some to tears. Organizer Clyde Muniz says both of his parents had traumatic experiences in the Indian schools and turned to alcohol to deal with it. He says they're now clean because of support systems like the Indian Friendship Center.
Nothing has changed. It was just an apology. If the change is going to have to come within us, the Anishinaabe people, we as Anishinaabe has to take the next step in life to go through what has happened and to heal properly for a better future.
Many of the rallies across the country were also in response to recent revelations about Aboriginal students and adults who were used in nutritional experiments by the federal government.
The clock is ticking as the future of Canada's world-renowned freshwater research station hangs in the balance. The experimental lakes area has operated for 40 years, but it could be shut down permanently by September 1st if a deal is not reached to guarantee its continued operation. Courtney Rutherford reports.
This body of water is home to a one-of-a-kind facility that researchers depend on. It's used to better understand global threats to the environment, impacts of human activities on lakes, and promotes protection and conservation of the areas around us. After the federal government closed the doors of the research facility this past April, the Ontario government agreed to fund the area on an interim basis. But nothing has been heard on the situation since. Still, MPP Michael Gravel says the Premier is committed to seeing the ELA stay open, despite the looming deadline.
Right now, the province, through the Minister of Natural Resources, is engaged in very constructive discussions with the federal government, with the International Institute for Sustainable Development, to see that indeed the operation stays open.
The current agreement allows scientists to perform experiments in the 58 lakes until September 1st. If a deal isn't reached by then, the ELA will be locked down. Although MPP Michael Gravel confirms Premier Wynne is working on the matter, members of the Canadian Council Advocacy Group say they haven't heard so much as a word.
We wrote to all the people who were involved in it and said, would you please let us know what's going on? Give us some updates so you don't need to tell us any big secrets, just let us know the things that are going on. That was on the 3rd of June. We haven't heard a word since then. And it was every one of the people who were involved in it.
The group is hoping to have an answer by the middle of August so they can prepare to picket if the facility in fact does close down. MP Bruce Hire says he's hoping that the newly appointed Minister of State for Science realizes the importance of the ELA to our region.
Mr. Rickford is an intelligent man, and I hope that he is going to stand up for science here, and we're all going to be waiting with bated breath to see whether he does that.
The outdoor laboratory has been open for the past 40 years, and the future of the facility will be determined in the coming month. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
There were several questions and concerns voiced at a public meeting today on the arrival of the Regional Research Institute's new cyclotron. The multi-million-dollar facility will play an important role in the treatment and diagnosis of cancer patients, but before the equipment arrives, several measures are being implemented to ensure public safety. Nate Jones reports.
This was the first of several information sessions scheduled to help educate the public on the soon-to-be nuclear facility. Once up and running, the cyclotron and radiopharmacy will be joining a network of such facilities across the country. The goal is to avoid a medical isotope shortage, such as in 2009 when the Chalk River reactor was shut down. The radioisotope making machine that's coming to Thunder Bay has a different and safer method of production than that facility.
It doesn't start with highly enriched or radioactive materials as its feedstock essentially. It uses things like enriched water, which is not radioactive.
Any radioactive materials that are left over break down in about 30 days or less, becoming no more harmful than background radiation found in the environment. Until these radioactive particles are safe, they will be stored underground behind 8 feet thick walls in the same room as the cyclotron. Currently, the city's medical isotopes come from southern Ontario. The long trip north means more material must be created because of short half-lives. Richard Wilkes, who was attending the session, was pleased with what he heard.
It's like you think of the stuff from down Toronto. It's it lasts for 99 years of trying to find someplace to bury it, whereas this stuff, after the maximum month, it'll be dead. So it's safe. There's nothing to worry about.
The cyclotron is to arrive in spring of next year. Completion of the structure behind me that will house it is slated for the summer. The next information session will be at the Regional Health Sciences Center August 7th. Nate Jones, TBT News.
Superior North EMS is getting a healthy funding boost from the province. The 4.8% increase amounts to nearly $540,000 to their $11 million budget. Chief Norm Gale says he's pleased the added funding will cover the provincial share of staffing the new ambulance added to their fleet last year.
More questions today about that fatal roof collapse at a shopping mall in Elliott Lake. Counsel for the inquiry tried to pin down the owner about repairs. Joanna Emiliotis reports from a town that wants answers.
It happened more than a year ago, but to Sherry and Jason Morrissey, it's a moment frozen in time.
There we go, we're walking in now.
That's the two of them on the Algo Center's parking deck, seconds before the roof caved in.
Felt like an earthquake. The whole building shook.
The chilling image was captured by a security camera, a close call that has left them searching for answers and accountability, especially from the mall's owner.
For sure, he should be blamed. He should be charged with murder.
Absolutely, he should. All those people he put in danger.
For the third day in a row, Bob Nazarian faced a barrage of questions about a leaky roof he never got around to repairing in the 7 years he owned the mall.
To find a way to clog those leaks. Because you were worried about what would happen. Not only that, but losing my tenants.
The inquiry has heard engineering reports detailing the leaks and the potential damage to the structure had been drawn up well before the roof collapsed. Reports Nazarian admitted to not reading. He testified he assumed the structure was sound, but still scrambled to secure financing for a permanent fix.
We were almost losing money. Our line of credit in our house was gone down, and we were knocking every door possible for help.
But in a statement today, the previous owners said Nazarian negotiated a $2 million price reduction to allow him to have sufficient cash in reserve to effect repairs. Gary Gendron is set to testify next month. His fiancée, Lucy Aylwin, died when the roof collapsed.
You know, if his roof or his house would be leaking, I think he'd fix it right away, right? So the same thing for this mall. It should have been not neglected. It should have been fixed right away.
Nazarian testified he may have had millions in assets, but little in cash flow. And he insists he had no idea the mall's roof was ever in any danger of collapsing. Joanna Remiliotis, CBC News, Elliott Lake.
A local education and training institute is helping Aboriginal youth explore the world of mining. Officials with Oshkosh Panashawin unveiled their new interactive web portal that is a gateway to information on mining careers and education programs. LearningToMine.ca is an educational career tool that will help prepare First Nations people for mining opportunities. E-learning coordinator Gordon Kakigamic says it addresses a learning gap with First Nations young people. He says they need more confidence to ask questions about opportunities in the mining industry.
You don't see that happening. One of the problems is there is no mining presence in the communities. You have youth there who can't speak really to anybody in terms of the mining industry. So the portal bridges that gap. The portal brings youth and industry together.
Kakigamic says the interactive website will help prepare youth for the potential mining boom in the area. He adds they hope to promote the site through engaging teens at schools and career fairs. Anyone interested in learning more can visit the Learning to Mine website.
Plans are now set for Patrick Sharp's return to Thunder Bay with the Stanley Cup on August 2nd. Just like in 2010 when the Blackhawks won the Cup, the Fort William Gardens will host Sharp and Lord Stanley's mug. The event will be open to the public from 12 noon till 2 in the afternoon. Sharp and his family consider the marina as a possible location, but after discussions with the city's events supervisor, Doug Henry, the decision was made to do it at the Gardens. It's the third time in the last 5 years that the greatest trophy in sports will visit the lakehead.
The NHL players, including Patrick, that are in Thunder Bay right now, I mean, they're such community people, and people really want to give that back to them. So I think it's a really great opportunity for people to say thanks to Patrick, and thanks to the NHLers that are part of our community, and that's what today is going to be.
Now, attendance is free, but the Sharp family is requesting people bring a non-perishable food item, which will then be donated to Shelter House.
A famous Andrew Lloyd Webber musical is headed to our city. Migliazza Productions is presenting Jesus Christ Superstar at Redwood Church starting tonight. The rock opera is based very loosely on the Bible's accounts of the last week of Jesus' life. Director Sam Migliazza says he was most inspired by the 1973 movie, so actors are dressed as though they were in the 70s. The production features 46 actors and actresses, an 11-piece band, and another half-dozen crew members. Cast members range in age from 14 to 32. Spencer Harry does a different play in the city every year and says this is the first locally produced mega musical in Thunder Bay in years.
And we've got the best backstage crew, we've got the best lighting, the best sound, the best band you'll ever hear, and all the actors are fantastic, and our director was such a visionary, so it was fun to follow him through.
I think the whole thing we've been going for is allowing people to not be able to pick what their favorite scene is. People are going to go away with just something they've never seen before in this city, and the talent, the singing is amazing.
The production is in support of Redwood Park Food Bank. It runs at 7 o'clock tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday. Tickets are selling out fast, and advance tickets are available at Steepers Tea and Valente's Music.